For all its criticism, Test Drive Unlimited has got a decent variety of cars. Of course, it's not a wide selection, but we do have a decent variety of cars, and I've kind of spoken about this in recent videos. Buying some cars that, typically don't attract me in game, I think it's a beautiful thing, because there's a lot of cars in game I've got no interest in owning. But recently we've obviously purchased some cars and found out they're actually hidden gems, much like the recent review we kind of did of the Dodge Challenger Hellcat SRT. Butchered that one. There is a lot of cars in game that we kind of don't really look at all too much. Something I kind of want to do going forward is starting to test out some of these cars to see if they are actually good enough to be using in game, much like we did with the Hellcat. So what we're going to do, first of all here, we're going to head on over to the British Performance Garage at the Central District, because there's one car in particular that really draws me to it, a lot of attention. The thing is absolutely beautiful in my opinion. It is of course the Lotus Evora GT430 at 1.2 million credits, with a 0 to 60 speed of just shy of 4 seconds, a top speed of almost 200, 430 brake horsepower, just shy of 1300 kilos. I think it's a bit of a steal at 1.2 million, especially for jumping in, playing about with and testing in game. Now of course I've bought it, fitted all the upgrades to this one, all the race spec upgrades, slick tyres, race suspension, you name it, we've applied it to the car. But one thing I've crucially not done here is do any form of tune. This is in just the stock tune, in fact it's not, this is in the sport tune over in the menu of course, and had to be in the fantastically beautiful British racing green, easy for me to say. So what I want to try and do here is test some of these cars. Are they good enough to compete with supercars, or are they good enough just to jump in and play about with, have some fun in game? We're going to head up to the top right of the map here. We're going to go over to the centre of attention, a 2-lap dry circuit race with a max RP of 1000, of course, in the supercar category. Now we can see we've got a fantastic field against us. Pistas, McLarens, Huracan tucked away at the back of the grid there. There is some big competition against us here, so it's going to be a real test of the Evora to see if this thing can actually hang with the supercars and if it's actually good enough to be using. Now the reason for doing these kind of videos, well, there is a lot of cars in game that we're never going to look at, we're never going to test, and it might come to our detriment a little bit here, because there might be some hidden gems in game. If it's something you guys want to see going forward, please let me know and I'll do more of this kind of video. But the other aspect of it as well, apologies, I want to kind of do it with a stock tune. Not everybody wants to come into the game, build a tune for a car, spend countless hours building a tune together. So I want to come in on the stock format or the sport format with all the parts applied and just see if this thing is actually good enough to be using in game. Already onto the freeway section here. We're going to be able to find out just how quick the Evora is, what the kind of top speeds we can get with this. There is 3 races at the top right of the map for the supercar category, which I think is a good testing ground to see if these things can actually hand. I think the only thing they're missing is a little bit of short track, tight corners, but we'll get into that as we get through the video. Onto the freeway section here. Easily up to 230 miles an hour. I think we could actually be quicker. There's a few sections here we've backed off or we've lifted, maybe not being as aggressive as we can, but already pushing up towards 240, 239 it was indeed, before backing off, coming off the off-ramp here, as we do want to avoid that central reservation, as we do lose a couple of frames, apologies on that one. Now we come in through the little tight city section, if you want to call it that much. It's not overly tight, but what we can test here is the high-speed handling of the Evora. These big sweeping right-handers we can see coming off the throttle. It's a live rear end. In those heavy corners, we don't really want to be backing off that throttle very much, as the back end will step out on us. It is a rear-wheel drive supercar after all, with a hell of a lot of power going through those back wheels. But first lap, we're almost there. Overall, we're looking pretty good. 8.5 seconds ahead of the AI. Yes, it's AI, it's not up against real players, which is unfortunate. It would be a good test against some real players in game, but that there is of course a whole other story. Round the left-hander, we chickened out of that one. We could have really committed to that one, not lifting off the throttle. It does feel quite good on the track. It does obviously give you a few reminders time and time again that this is a rear-wheel drive, 800 horsepower supercar. It will snap at you if you're far too aggressive. Now with this being in a stock tune, not building this one well, I don't like how it brakes. We can see tapping into these walls under heavy braking zones. I don't like the brake balance, so for me, I would obviously sit here and concentrate on how the brakes are balanced front and rear, how the pressure is, how the pressure's set, how much pressure's set on that one. I do think the brakes do need a lot of work. When we talk about the speed does feel good. The front end, it's very snappy, it's a very sharp front end, which again I think is quite a good thing. We'll be able to get this thing turned on a dime, which is fantastic. Fifth gear for me is a bit of a problem. We can see it feels like a bit of a flat spot here, but it is constantly pulling up the rev range. It is pulling through the speed barrier, hitting 240 miles an hour. I just think we could get through fifth gear, maybe even through sixth gear a little bit quicker. Then we come back in to talk about the brakes again. They're not as responsive as quickly as I would want them to be, so that's again another thing I would like to have balanced out. Coming into some of these sections here, we can see if that steering's locked and you put the throttle down, like I said, it's a rear-wheel drive supercar, 800 horsepower. It's going to snap at you, so it does give you those constant stark reminders that this thing will snap back if you're far too aggressive on it. But a nice easy race there to kick us off today in the Evora. Overall, I speak quite highly of this car, 18 seconds ahead of the rest of the pack on what's, for all intents and purposes, not the longest of races, around about 4 minutes, in fact shy of 4 minutes, 3 minutes 50 seconds to kind of round that one out. I quite like this thing. I wanted to try it. We know that Lotus has got a fantastic racing pedigree. Go back to the early days of the Lotus Elise, the Lotus Exige, the Evija, the Evora, so on and so forth. They've got a fantastic pedigree of cars, so they should be good in game. The Evora here did not disappoint on the first race. Heading over to the second race, if it wants to load, there we go. We have indeed got the Seafarer's Way, another supercar sprint, 3.4 miles. It's going to be dry on asphalt, of course, with a max RP this time of 1050. Now again, a fantastic grid we're up against, quite an eclectic grid actually, with a Shelby Daytona, Caterham, Ferrari F40, McLarens, and of course another of Lotus sitting just beside us. Again, launching off the line, it's rear-wheel drive. It's 800 horsepower. We're going to get a bag of wheel spin, but this thing actually controls the wheel spin not too bad, in my opinion, off the line, considering it's got 800 horsepower going through just the rear wheels. So it's fairly balanced, I would say. Again, on a sport tune, build this thing together. I think we're going to have an absolute weapon on our hands. Maybe do that in another video, play about with the tune of this thing. Up into the Solo Hotel once again. This time we're going to head to the left and kick back on ourselves with another left hand kink right here. That's almost a hairpin, isn't it? As we do start to push this thing uphill. Now we know this part of the track already. We know it's a very fast, high speed, snaking section to take us down into a heavy left hand braking section. So we're going to be able to test out the Evora here. How's it going to handle through some of these heavy left-handers? You know, we're under full load, and as we learned from the last race, lifting during the corner, this thing will snap round on us. So there's a couple of sections there I've backed off coming into the corner, maybe pushing out a little bit. Maybe we could have that throttle fully applied, but as we do come downhill into the braking zone, learning once again that the brakes aren't quite up to scratch just yet. Round the big sweeping left-hander, we can see the back end did just want to snap ever so slightly. So again, I think with a bit of a better tune on this one, we could maybe have an absolute weapon on our hands here. A nice quick sprint. I do like coming over to this sprint. It is a very good race to come in, quickly rinse some wins off, maybe warm yourself up, earn some quick XP and some quick credits. The Seafarer's Way up at the top right hand side of the map, guys. Head on over and check that race out if you have not already. But again, a nice easy win in the Evora. I genuinely think we might have a little bit of a sleeper on our hands here. This thing does feel like it's more than capable of competing. Lastly, we're going to head on over once again on this little strip here to the Tour de Force, another supercar 1050 RP race. It's a 2-lap circuit. This one here is kind of going to be much of the same, a bit of a mix and match of both races so far, all rolling up into one fantastic race, another fantastic grid. Alfa Romeos, McLarens, a devilish GT40 sitting there. That GT40 is going to be very interesting to see if we can pass. It's going to launch us off the line rather. We do unfortunately just snap its nose off just there, but once again we fall to the detriment of poor braking here with the Evora. I do not like the way this brakes to very slow speeds, taking us into that central reservation. I would have expected that thing to have stopped very shy of it and get round the right-hander, but it is what it is. We'll push forward and we get back onto that freeway section. We can now start to hunt down the GT that is sitting just ahead of us. We're actually looking quite matched so far, side by side, as we do have a quick sharp take off the freeway section, but we do unfortunately follow through with the Ford GT just there and hit that central reservation. Let's just say we were doing a durability test, bouncing off the wall, no panels fell off, the Evora is good for that one. We'll just sweep that one under the rug, won't we? Little tight section there though, double right-hander. How do we break into this right-hander here? It's alright. As we get the power down, we want to straighten up. Once again, we're not wanting the back end of this thing snapping round on us. As we do come through the Snaking City section just here, downhill left-hander into a big sweeping right-hander, double right-hander in fact. As we do try to get the power down, like we can see, on a corner the back end will snap out into the left-hander. Again, the back end's going to snap out as soon as we do put the throttle down. We're starting to play with this thing now. We can understand how it's handling. Even when the back end does step out, it's actually fairly manageable, but like I mentioned, I think with a tune, we could probably take away some of that snap that the back end of this Evora has under load in a corner. It's never going to fully go away. It is a rear wheel drive supercar. It's only natural for that to happen with no stability or traction control. Into the braking zone again, out braking ourselves, taking us into those trees. I do think that is the biggest downfall with this car, is its brakes. It's probably going to be one of the focuses I would have using this, building a tune. Get those brakes tuned in, you know, balance them between the front and the rear, balance the brake pressure. I think there's a lot of work to be done with those brakes, but once they're fixed, I think that thing's going to be devilish into some of those slow speed corners. Coming off the freeway section once again here, do we do another durability test? We certainly do. The back end snapping on us as we came off that section, but again, no panels fell off. The Lotus is very, very durable. Into the left-handers here, how's it going to hold? It actually slows down alright coming off the throttle. A little bit of brakes, so yeah, the deceleration isn't too bad. Something I tend to take out of the cars. I don't like too much deceleration personally. As we come back through the snaking section one more time, can we get this, you know, tightened up a little bit? Can we stop the snap of oversteer? Can we not lock up coming into some of these zones? We never had any snap that time out, so we were cleaner coming around the right-handers into the left-hander. We've got another snap once again into the right-hander. Are we going to snap? We are indeed going to snap into oversteer, but we get round that left-hander one more time, a big power slide to bring us round, and we'll advance forward to cross, or push forward to the start-finish line, round out the third and final race for today's video. I speak quite highly of this car. I think this is going to be a little sleeper, dare I say it, one of the maybe not OP supercars, but I think this one has got a hell of a lot of potential. I saw Yunon, one of the, in my opinion, one of the top racers in game, actually did a video not too long ago with this car and set the fastest time on some races with that, and it still hasn't been touched. Head on over to Asayun's channel and of course check that one out. But how highly would I rate this car? What do I truly think of it? I think this has got a lot of potential. I think this is a car I want to spend some time with, building a tune, improving it and making it supercar usable. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, but when we actually just take a second to look at this car, it looks absolutely spectacular for that and that alone. 7.5 out of 10. But British Racing Green, big spoiler, sounds fantastic. I think it's got plenty of ability. I would be knocking it up to around about 7.5. I do think this thing has got bags of potential, does need some time spent to build a tune together, to try and make it competitive. It's going to snap at you with oversteer. It's an aggressive 800 sub 1000 kilo supercar. It's a Lotus. It's going to be fantastic. They don't make shit cars, let's be honest. Maybe a couple in history, but for the vast majority of them, Lotus makes sensational cars, and I did expect this one to be as good as it was. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If this is something you want to see more of, let me know in the comment section down below, and I will do more videos for you guys to enjoy. Before you do leave, as always, smash up the like, subscribe, tap on the bell, all the usual good stuff, guys. Help grow the channel, and I'll see you, or stay tuned, sorry, for more videos on Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown.